Thanks. I'm Kurt. I work at Juergens and JIS. Juergens has 3 different divisions. We have a manufacturing division, and JIS is our distributor. So we use Bezlio across most of all 3 of the divisions. So feel free to ask any questions too, by the way, as I'm going through this. I got some slides, and then I'll hopefully be able to jump into our environment and show off a couple of the different things that we're doing. We're an industrial distributor selling cutting tools, carbide inserts, anything different you need for industrial application, material handling, different kind of things. We use Bezlio mainly internally, externally salespeople, and then our salespeople show it off to our customers actually if they're sitting there with them in terms of orders or quotes or different things if they need to close them or move them forward. Our data is typically Profit 21, P21 is our ERP, and it's a very small CRM type of system that we also that's good enough for us. We don't need Salesforce or anything better. SQL Server based, and that's pretty much how we get almost everything is just direct SQL queries. So in terms of the different users we have using Bezlio, so we have our sales reps, our sales managers, our executive management, and then our delivery drivers. So for our distributors, they're actually out in the field driving, dropping off products and coming back. And so what we've actually set up is this kind of view. So when they first log in, depending upon the user, they either are a manager or what we call a super user. It just sets a flag in most of the bezels to tell what kind of data should be brought back. So that top view you can kind of see would be like a select sales rep drop down. So where they might have data across, whatever data that we're using in the bezel. And so you can see that like at the top is all ASG. That's one of our other divisions. So that see all the data coming from them. Or as they get down, those are different regional sales managers. And so all their sales reps would roll up underneath them. And at the bottom you can see individual sales reps. So they can kind of see different layers of information as they're going down. And then on the bottom is an example of like, you can kind of see where it says all-Rick. So this would be Rick's view. So when Rick logs in, he can only see his reps, and we've chosen to allow everyone to see all, so they can see how the whole company's doing. So here's an example of the sales rep dashboard. When they log in, this is kind of what the view that they see. So it's a snapshot of what, management kind of wants them to be focusing on. So in the top left, you can see we have quote follow-ups. So depending upon different dimensions of what a quote is, so what the size is, who the customers are, different things like that, we'll flag one for them to have to follow up with the customer to try and convert that quote. They're all dated, so you can see that some of them are past due. And each one of these things they can click into and see more detail on a different bezel. Projected opportunity, they all have a budget that they work on every year, and so they come up with whatever that number is for each of the sales reps, and then that just projects out based off their current sales where they're going to be at the end of the year. It turns red obviously if it's bad, turns green if it's good. So over 100% would be positive or breaking their goal. And then you can see down there a couple different KPI numbers as well. So sales today, this week, last month, and then kind of comparisons versus prior or rolling average. So this is an example if they clicked into kind of quote follow-ups. So you can see for each of the quotes, it pulls up, what the quote was. We call it activities because that's what we call it in our CRM. But they can basically click into that, see more detail, see each of the line items, see everything about it. POs where they usually kind of put notes about what's going on, what the value of the quote, margins. And then over here, so for the target, they can update that. So if they call the customer and he says, I need another week, they can update that date so it goes into the future, and then they kind of keep going through that. Over here on the completed reason, so it's a drop down of different reasons. Again, that reason's being pulled from our P21, so I don't have to actually go in there and change anything. I don't have to update it. I let the sales reps and sales managers be able to do that. They go in there and make all those changes, and then it's immediately reflected in Bezlio if they wanted to add one or change one or delete one. So those would be like different things like customer didn't want it, price was too high, etc. So these are some different views that we might show our customers from the sales rep side. So when they come in, they can search. They have a type ahead there, so they can search for anything or any additional customers that they want to see. They immediately see all the contact information. From there, they can kind of click, and I know we've seen some of these yesterday too. This is just a slightly different version of what we have, but you can click on each one of those, email people immediately, add new contacts, change them, delete them, and down at the bottom shows all open orders. So they might sit there with a customer and say, hey, we have these open orders. We know this one's going to ship out, next week, different things like that, because the customer's being able to look and see how our account's doing, what they wanted. And then up at the top there is a graph just showing last year's performance versus this year. And then the green line shows month to date. So if the blue bar's higher than the green dot, we're doing good for that month. And then over here, there's a graph and a table right next to each other that they can see each of the months. You can kind of click, drill into, see all the different orders, all the different information that's going on. So it's an easy way for everyone to be able to always be able to drill deeper into whatever they're looking for. Inventory out in the field's really important. So I forgot to mention, almost exclusively our guys use iPads for all of this. So when they're in the field, that's what they have with them. It's what they use for everything. So on the left, they can do stock lookups. So pull up any item, search by description, item ID, check mark if they only want stock, items that are in stock, and then it pulls up and shows them what we have, what we don't have at our different distribution centers and different warehouses. And then on the right is kind of what, I think the biggest part of Bezlio for us is this is a way for them to input data to our system. So here, if they're talking with a customer and they say, hey, I want you to stock that item, they can immediately, without having to previously, they pull up an Excel file and then email it into us, and then somebody has to take the Excel file and kind of go through. They can type in any item, come in here and set what the customers told them at least their monthly usage is going to be. Reset inventory min and maxes, and this immediately gets an email fired off to our buyer to go through and actually place an order. Actually, we have it in stock, help serve the customer's better needs. Again, another way that we're using this as an input device, because the sales reps are typically outside of our office. They're out working with customers. Here, this is where they go out and work with manufacturers. So they'll work with them, understand their product. We're a very in-depth knowledge sales department. So they go out there and can work with all the different people. Different sales vendors, manufacturers, shows this is then at the bottom like kind of a manager's view, so they can look to see the sales reps, see how many they've done by month, see how many, who they've gone to. They can click into each one of those, gives them a little bit more detail. They can download it to Excel if they need to work anything with it. We're just starting to pull leads. So when we have a show now, so this is, we go to a trade show, we come back with a bunch of leads. You get those from the thing you shoot with the gun, and it's an Excel file, and then you have nothing to do with it. Well, we take them and we actually import them in through Bezlio. They come in through here, so they automatically, based off zip code, get assigned to a sales rep, because that's how we do our assignment. Comes in here, shows the sales rep how many leads they got, and you can click to send an email, and it copies all of the information that we got from there and sends it to them. Or a lot of people want it as an Excel, so we download the Excel and send that to them. So, and then all that information, instead of sitting in an Excel file, is also now in our CRM and in our ERP. So that way, immediately, as this one guy, from the show, it's a hot lead, they want to quote, we can quote them, immediately. So that's pretty cool. That was from the other slide. So, any questions or anything else? Otherwise, I'll jump in and show a couple demos of other things we got going on.
So for your customer login, you're giving them an account?
So we're not currently letting our customers log in. We're letting our sales reps log in, and then they'll just show them while they're with the customers. We do have ideas in the future of potentially doing that, but not yet. All right, let's see if I can get this. So I mentioned we have a few different kinds of users that we have, and one of our types of users is our delivery drivers. Oh, it's backwards. That's what. Yeah. One of our delivery drivers. So when they go out into the field, they typically, or when they start their day, they don't necessarily know what they're doing. So they get assigned tickets, typically from a consignment rep that's in the office. So they know that there's an office. We have a lot of vending machines in other customers' offices, and so they're stocked with products, cutting tools and different things that they might need throughout the day that they can come vend them out and immediately go back to their job, rather than having us order it and deliver it and that kind of thing. So they're replenishing a lot of those. So as a consignment person in our office might create a ticket for them. So you can see the different types of things: a scheduled delivery, 911 delivery, meaning they're out of it and they need it right now. Service and maintenance, if the machine goes down. So you can select an action, select a customer, and you can see on the left it's pulling in as we're going through who at that office we might want to contact. So I'll just assign it to myself so nobody actually goes and does this, because this is this is live. So, and then click create ticket. And so what it tried to do is send an email. So get rid of that. So it tried to go find that, and then it would have sent that body. It was over there to the correct rep at the customer and our consignment rep, so he knows what to go do. So then he would come down, and he has his own panel, so that he can, when he logs in, he can see what he already knows what he has to do. But that's that ticket I just created for myself of where I need to go out. So select that. You can select the ticket. Typically, they only have one per customer, so these are the open transfers that are sitting in the warehouse somewhere. So luckily I picked the right customer that we had to ship to. That there's actual products sitting there waiting to be shipped with these numbers on them. They'll go in and select whatever they need to ship. And say, hey, I got this in my truck, so I'm ready to go. And then when they actually get to that location, they will come here to what we call signature delivery. So they'll find any of the tickets that they have selected to say, hey, this is what I have in my truck. That's what I know I have. When they select that, it pulls up the list of items that they have that they've picked up already. So it shows what the item number is, how many they're transferring, and typically there'll be somebody at that facility that's receiving that, and they'll sign it. And then accept. And so now we've captured all of that throughout the whole process of all the timestamps are being captured. That guy's signature is captured. We know who received it. We know he's, in theory, looked it over and seen, yeah, this is all the stuff I got. So you can see down here, these are all the different tickets that other people currently have. So if somebody needed to, go in there and close additional tickets, they canceled the order or for whatever reason, things were going bad, they can do that. And similarly, if, there's a service maintenance issue, they would go in here, select what machine also now, because we need to know which machine is broken, so some people have multiple machines. Select who it's assigned to. And that ticket gets created. And so now when they're going to work on a service ticket, though, there's something slightly different. So down here you can see these are the service tickets I have open. So from what day, what machine I'm supposed to be working on, anything about that. So they would enter the current time because that's when they're about to start service. So if I'm there ready to start service, they would click Start Service. Shows them what machine they're servicing. If they needed a part that was broken, they can select. I added one coil motor, and so all of that is now captured as we're billing to that customer to say, hey, these are all the different things we did for you while we were on site. And so then when they're done, they would stop the service, and they could have closed it too. But that time is also tracked from when they started to when they stopped, so that way we can assign labor hours towards that. And if you close it, it's all gone.
So is this making tickets in Profit 21 then?
So this is actually creating tickets in a custom tables I built.
Okay.
So all the information, all of our customers, all the machines, all that information is being pulled out of P21. The actual ticketing service is just...
It's a parallel process.
Yeah.
And that movement of the inventory from one location, is that just really just an inventory transfer? Or
Yeah, inventory transfer with
your system?
that is actually happening in P21. That is a inventory transfer from this location to that location. All of that is in P21.
How have your drivers and service personnel adapted to using it?
So we actually, if you notice, we call it Vendesk because we use vending. Typically, before this, we used a company called Zendesk, which most people probably heard of, but it's a software ticketing for troubleshooting bugs and things like that in software or IT. Not necessarily made for this, so they hated that. So they like this a lot better. So
your advice is make it really bad.
start them off with something terrible and then make something better. Yeah.
How many do you employ that's in the field? Is it on tablets?
Yeah, so it's on. So they actually have tablets. Some of them have their own personal phones, and they prefer that. We let them do whatever they'd like. So yeah, most of them have tablets that they use, and some, at least two of them I know, have told me I like the phone, so I'm just going to use that because I don't want to carry the tablet into the place, leave it there, and then have to come back because that's really what happens. So they put their phone in their pocket, and they know they can do that.
Have you, and I'm going off of more some other things I saw yesterday, is if you looked at when you select the customer, that if it is going to be on the phone, to then click give me directions.
Yeah, that would be cool. That we have not done that, but that would be really cool. I was talking with Tony about some of the native stuff that we saw that previously. That'd be really cool.
How does, so they're using tablets to do it right now? Mm-hmm. This is a pretty data-rich screen. How does it pair down to a phone?
I think, let's see. I don't know if this would work to make it look like that. You guys, oh, that's not right. They usually hit F12. There's no F button. There you go. And I don't know if this is going to make it look like the way it looks like on a. So I mean, that's what it looks like on a phone, and so it's
That's nice.
yeah, and so when they create the service tickets look it models pretty well.
That's nice.
By the way, while you have it open, question for these guys, is the Chrome console, is that your place to debug?
Yeah, so like anytime you're writing a function, the best word to put in there is word debugger. If you leave this open, it'll let you jump to the line of code and make a step through functions and see what's going on.
Write your exceptions there.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at old school, you'd have to like console log it out and it'll go there, but like the debugger lets you cover out variables and like see the contents of arrays and all that kind of cool stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I write a lot of things to the console as I'm going because no one else is going to look at it. So, and then I still don't have. So most of the time I go back and clean it up, but a lot of times I don't. So.
So is there been any thought to automating the email send?
So the reason we do it this way, you can do that, and we do that for other processes in Bezlio. We like it because it gives them an actual Outlook box that they can then type something else in, like, hey, I left it on your desk rather than leaving it in the normal place or whatever like that. That's the reason we do that. All right, so one of the other things, I think this is pretty cool. Because it uses a lot of, it's because it was a lot of work. It uses a lot of P21 processes, but like so typically when a new customer calls up, because we do a lot of phone sales, they'll call up and the customer service rep probably hasn't dealt with them before, and they say, "I'm Smith Tool Inc." They type in Smith Tool. Nobody's there. They're like, new customer, and they fill it all out. And so it muddies up the whole CRM. Then you got a bunch of other things. So what we built this for them is to be able to enter in this is actually the first place they go for new prospects. So I didn't think about one to start off with. So what they do now is whenever they're entering in people, and there's a good example of how we got two, of the same ones in there. So it pulls them up. They can then, show more info to say, okay, is this that right person, or do I need to create a new prospect? And so, if for whatever reason this, guy is a new, isn't one of these new existing customers, it really is COLA, they can say, okay, that's good to go. And then, what this next step does, let's see. What it does here is it looks, from the start of the email, the end of the email, on the domain, because that's the way we catch most of the matches actually is off the domain of the email. Then we know that's really the same customer. So then they can come back in here and say that's this guy or whatnot. And so then it does similar thing on the street address. And that one actually passed, so nobody that lives at Main Street. And so then they would enter in all of the remaining info. Let's do this one better. And so as they enter in the correct postal code, it pulls up who the rep should be. We have split reps in Ohio, so that's why it kind of that. So it'll pull up who the rep is supposed to be. That guy will get an email, say, hey, we have a new contact, all that kind of same information. And all of this is going directly into our database or, you know, ERP, so they can quote immediately on it. So.
You switch over to material for that one.
Yeah, so you'll notice, we've been a customer of Bezlio for a little while, and so we started off in one way, and the Vendesk stuff was one of the first things we built, and so now I've slowly been upgrading as, you know, new things come out. It's definitely faster. It's so much faster. Yeah, and it's got some cool little visual tweaks to it that make it look nice. So. So the last thing I'll show is also, so this is a similar process for one of our other divisions, but RFQ, so request for quotes. So our other division, ASG, they do automation, full automation, all the way down to robotic screwdrivers, simply for assembly. So lots of different scope of work and what they can do. And so here, these people will create requests for quotes of people that call in. So a lot of times it might be a distributor, it might be a direct end user that calls. So two different ways to enter in people, from whether they're an end user or a distributor, but they'll select who that is. It immediately pulls up only contacts from that organization. They can select that. It pulls up their contact info out of the database. Same down here, select sales rep, it pulls in sales manager. And each one of these things is actually doing a call as soon as you select it back to the database. So you can see it's pretty quick because we're on a pretty terrible connect. It's on my phone. So, it goes right back to the database and comes immediately back. So it's pretty snappy. And so down here, you saw I selected a type of project, a vacuum automation, so they might be vacuuming up screws to automatically auto feed directly to the screwdriver. And it pulls up who that should be assigned to. And then they can go in here and remove and say, no, it's really just going to be his project. Select if there's an NDA with this project. So typically they'll send the screws to us to say, hey, here's our screws, is this going to work for you or not? But if not, they can add additional assignees and then create that RFQ. I'm not going to muddy this one because this one is. But then after it's created, basically we have a whole list of projects that people are working on. These are all in there, so you can see that this is one down in Mexico, who it was created by, what day it was created by, who it's assigned to. Over here we added kind of a comment system, so people can come in, type whatever notes, and then update the status. So if we've received the parts, somebody needs to then evaluate what's going on, and then we can set up a kind of like a CRM, a lead scoring system to say, hey, we think this sale is 60 days out, and therefore that's 40% probable, and so therefore we can multiply it out to say, here's what our pipeline's looking like. And so then they'll go in there and update those, and so you can see this is what the status was at the last time, done by who, on what day, and then whatever their comments were. And so as you're looking down here, over here, so this is receipt. So we actually received items in. So there's a different version I can show, but basically down in our shipping department, they come in here and say they got a box that says S10137 because that's what we told the customer right when we created that. It's marked on the top. He says, okay, we got this. He has a whole system that he says, hey, Adrian, I put it on your desk to evaluate. Down here we can add a quote, and it would pull up and show all what is in the quote. And maybe I can just go back to one of these other ones. So this one, it's got a quote attached to it, and so when you select that, it shows what the item that was quoted to that person. We can have multiple quotes on here if they have different iterations of what they're So down here we have application data sheets. So the customer would fill this out. And this is a kind of a dummy one because this is one I created, I know, where the customer would fill this out though, and then send it back to us. So they can attach it here. So it's one place, one repository where our sales guys, our engineers, everybody can come into and say, hey, this is what's going on with that RFQ, that project. And then if they ever need to edit anything, they can come in here and update who it's assigned to, who the sales reps are, and then save that. So, I think that's about all I have on this. Anybody have any other questions or anything? Yeah.
Alright, so refresh my memory. First off, Kurt created all of this. So, what kind of background did you have prior to getting into Bezlio?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd done a lot of web analytics, so I had some familiarity with JavaScript and HTML and CSS, but it certainly wasn't at a developer level, or I basically could write tags to put in for Google Analytics and Adobe, so that's about all I got. So now I can know a bit more. So yeah.
I think, did you have a page in there called user tracking?
Yeah.
I apologize if you already.
No. So what this is one when I pulled out, and it's slightly different than what I have now. And if anybody wants me to share it, I can before. But basically, this is a snippet I put in on the load of all the bezels that basically goes through and tracks, so I can see who's using what bezels and how often. So that way, when somebody tells me they want to update this one, I'm like, no, you haven't done anything with it. So. Yeah. So like I said, I have a slightly updated version of this where, because of now with how we've kind of changed, how the system has kind of changed, it's more of a bezel based. So previously, this was just tracking at the panel level, which was like, because we had multiple bezels onto one. So now it tracks at the bezel level and tracks also whether they're using the app or the mobile or desktop version. So.
Good job.
Thanks.
Is that writing that into a database, or?
Yeah, so that's right into a custom table I wrote that just basically it's that table. You can kind of guess what the columns are and stuff, and then it just sits in our same P21 system. It's just a custom table. Yeah. And then.
Have you considered making like sort of admin dashboard with doing some of this?
Yeah, so they do. They actually have, yeah, so our executive managers have this so they can see who's logging in, who's not. And so it also tracks, so once we have that information about what bezels and what panels they're using, so a lot of like the quote follow-ups and things like that, they'll look to see if they even went to look to see if they did them. And so then somebody comes back to them and says, oh, it didn't work for me. It didn't show anything. We can kind of see whether you went to it. Maybe it didn't work for you, but we wouldn't get that data if it didn't work for them. But we can also say, we saw you logged in and the other things worked, so you probably just didn't do anything.
You're already telling people that yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are you using the device time for logging?
That, as opposed
So
to,
you're creating your time, as opposed to just say the SQL Server time.
I probably could have, yeah.
I don't know if there was a reason for it.
No, that's pretty good. That's a good idea. Should have.
Get data.
What was the most challenging part for you?
getting up to speed. And then as of like, right now, it's some of the interactions between, so that when we switched over and looked at mobile, we only still have a subset of our panels on mobile. I mean, I don't want to say on mobile because they're all on mobile, but they don't all look quite as good. And that was as of like a month ago, so I haven't really looked at the other ones. But our delivery drivers are the biggest ones that are always using their phones, and so that's where it was the big. I had to kind of do some of the CSS stuff that was a pain in the butt. That seems like a lot of the fixes you guys have done yesterday. I saw, that's why I was asking some of those questions, because it looks like it'll be really nice.
Or do you do Bezlio full-time?
No, so I'm basically a data analyst for us, and so Bezlio is a portion of what I do. But I do a lot. I sit within our finance organization, so I do a lot of financial reporting and a lot of other things. So.
How many hours a week would you say you put into it?
So.
Sorry, you're personal, but
No, it's good. At the beginning, it was more obviously, and now it's in terms of maintenance, it's a couple hours a week. I mean, and that's more. Somebody wanted this column added to this thing, and that takes 10 minutes, and it's somebody else comes up with a new panel or a new idea for something, and coming up with that. So yeah, I'd say a couple hours a week on average. But at the beginning, it was a lot of hours to ramp up. I don't really know exactly how many, but it was over the course of months, and so. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.